Hello, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Mustafa. Welcome to the channel. And today I'm going to just introduce this web development course with Django. It's going to be hands-on, and we're going to dive pretty deep onto some of the topics surrounding web development and application development in general. And so here's just a rough outline, right? We're going to learn, about SQL and data modeling. We're going to learn how to use that data within views and templates to show to the user using HTML and CSS. We're going to learn how to take in the user's data through forms and process their data. And we're also going to later on the line learn about authentication and authorization, right? Most of the time you'll hear this just referred to as auth. And we're gonna dive pretty deep on some of these topics. I want it to be pretty comprehensive, and I want this to be more towards beginners, who have just learned their first programming language and want to start doing something more serious, want to start using more popular libraries and start putting their programming knowledge to work. Now, personally, I love Django, and I believe that if you're a beginner in your programming and development journey, you should 100% learn it. Not because it's really popular and because a lot of companies are using it, but simply because you're going to learn so much about what it takes to build applications, web applications, mobile applications, backend services. All of these things like SQL and views and forms and authentication, they're all universal across most of the frameworks you're going to come across. And so by learning Django and getting that solid technical foundation on all there is to it, you're going to be able to walk away from this course being very confident in your ability to learn more languages and learn more tools, learn more frameworks, and you're going to elevate your game, I promise you. So now that we have the outline out of the way, we can go on to the prerequisites. And I'm not asking much from you, but it is your commitment that is ultimately going to carry you through this course. And I say that because it's not going to be easy. I know for me personally, it took me well around 2 weeks to get through the tutorial within the official documentation. And I get it. It's going to be frustrating. You're going to come across dumb errors. Some things you might not be able to grasp the first time it comes to you. But it's important to stay resilient, take a break, come back, use tools like Google and ChatGPT to help you get across roadblocks and get a better understanding of things. And that's what's going to carry you through this course. And I promise if you just stay committed to it, you stay committed to learning, you're going to be able to get through it just fine. So now we can get started on downloading the stuff we need and configuring our development environment. First, we want to go on the Django documentation website. Now, most of everything I will be talking about, doing, and saying is going to be directly referenced from this Django documentation. I highly recommend you go check it out for yourself, and when you're stuck, try to reference from it as well. So from here, we can press get started with Django. We can try a tutorial, dive into documentation. But for now, we want to install Django, right? So first we need to download Python. And so we can do that from here. Go on python.org. We can just download the latest release here. Wait for that to start up. We can just install now. Let that go through. Now, in my experience, the Python installation does take a little bit of a while, so go grab a glass of water, maybe a coffee. I personally got me a frozen mocha from Costco, so there's that. Now, while that's installing, we want to go ahead and install VS Code as well. This is going to be our IDE, or integrated development environment. It's where we're going to be doing all our programming, and it's also where we're going to open terminals and start up some processes as well. So right here, we can just go ahead, download for Windows. Oh, there we go, comes up automatically. We can go ahead with that setup as well. So now that we downloaded Python, we want to verify its installation. And this is something that you should get into the good habit of doing whenever you're starting a new project and installing dependencies. So from the Windows Start menu, we can go to the command prompt. This would be the terminal on Mac OS. And we can try the Python command. Now, this is the command that you might be familiar with, but a lot of the times and some of the times it might not work, as you see in this case. Most of the time when you're on Windows, you simply do py, and that'll work. There you go. It tells us we have Python version 3.13.5, and from here it brings up the shell automatically. If you want to escape this, you just type in exit function as well, like that. And if you're on Mac OS, the command you can use is Python 3, and that's what's going to work for you on both Mac OS and Linux systems. Now that we have VS Code and Python installed, we can go ahead and open up VS Code. You should get a screen that looks sort of like mine. And from here, we can press open folder. And this is going to bring up the file explorer. I personally like putting it in either my C or D drive. So in this case, we can make a new folder here and we can name it Django course like so. And then we can go ahead and select the folder. And now if we look at the whoopsie, yes, trust the authors. Now if you look at the folder up here, Django course, we see that this is going to be our working. So now that we're in VS Code in our working directory, to open up the terminal, we just hit up the top left over here, and then we can see terminal, and then new terminal. And there you go, it'll open up a new terminal for you to use. If you need a new terminal, you can just click up here, and then when you need to delete old ones, you can go ahead and click it over here as well. Now, you may have realized that we installed Python, we installed VS Code, but we never downloaded Django. And that's because we don't really go on the website and click a button to install it. We use what's called a package manager to download it. And let's go into a little bit how that works. So if we go into the Django documentation, get started, dive into the documentation, installation, we can see install Python, we already did that, set up a database, we won't need to do that in our case, and then install an official release. And so here's what it says, right? Install pip. The easiest is to use the standalone pip installer. Now pip is going to come with Python installations automatically, so you won't need to worry about installing it. And then take a look at venvironment. This tool provides isolated Python environments, which are more practical than installing packages system-wide. And that's going to be really important. So let's talk about this a little bit more. What are packages? Say you write a program that's really useful and you want other developers and people to be able to use it and install it more easily. Now, you could just host it on GitHub and tell people to copy and paste your code, but what people figured out a long time ago was that we could collectively host packages and vet them out and make them available for install really easily. And so that's what package managers are, if we look over here. Now, you can kind of think of package managers as two things, right? One, it's a repository of packages to download, right? So this may be Django, Fast API, it may be Pandas, and it's also a local API to download and manage packages. Now, if you ever set up a Linux system before, you've probably done something like sudo apt install Firefox, and that's using a package manager. In this case, apt is the package manager you use to install Firefox. And we use the same kind of principle within Python development. In our case, we would do something like pip install Django, pip install Pandas, or Beautiful Soup, or Fast API, any of the amazing tools and frameworks out there on the Python ecosystem. Now, like it referenced in the documentation, we also want to start a virtual environment. When we run the pip install command without a virtual environment, it's going to install the packages system-wide for the whole computer. And you necessarily don't want to do this. It gets hard to track, and you want to have better control over the dependencies in your project. And that's what we use a virtual environment for. We create a virtual environment, and whenever we're going to work and start our project, we start up the virtual environment alongside of it. And when we want to install new packages, we run the pip command, and if it detects that we're within a virtual environment, it will only install it within that directory. And so that's what we're going to do in our case. And so we can go ahead. Here, we're at the Django course working directory. We can open up a new terminal like this. And in my case, I can make it a little bit bigger for you guys. So down here, py-m, venvironment, and then we can just do venvironment again, like that. and that's going to take a bit of a while. Now, if you're on Linux or Mac OS, the same thing applies, but your command would be Python 3 -m v environment like that. Now, in our case, you might notice that it created a new folder in our directory called v-environment. Now, we need to start this virtual environment now. So to start the virtual environment now on Windows, what you can do is we can directly reference and activate bash script within that folder. So within the v-environment folder, what I basically did is I just typed venv, and then I hit tab. It's going to automatically jump. And then within v-environment, there's going to be, with the capital S, a scripts folder. And within that scripts folder should be an activate file. And there you go. Once we're finished with it, you'll see v-environment right here. It's going to show us and let us know we're in the virtual environment. For macOS and Linux systems, it's going to be a little bit different, but in this case, you use the source command. So you would do source, and it would be /v-environment. And I think in this case, it's bin activate. I don't know that for a fact. I will need to check up on that. Actually, let me do that real quick. So yes, in this case, I was correct. It's source v-environment within the bin folder, and it's going to be the activate file. So here we go. Now we have our v-environment started, and now we can go back to the Django documentation. And here you go. Actually, in the documentation, you can see the selector right here for Mac OS and Linux and Windows as well. So if you need help with finding a command, you can always reference the documentation. In this case, I'll go ahead and copy that and let that install. So now that we have Django installed, we can validate our Django installation. So here in the command prompt, what you want to type in is Django hyphen or dash admin, like this. And then you should see that you have a list of available commands you can do. And if we look at all these commands, there's going to be one that we want to do soon, which is right here, start project. So in this case, we can go ahead and run that. And the start project takes in two arguments. It's going to take, the first argument is going to be the name of the project, and the second argument is going to be the name of the folder that's going to be in. In our case, we can just only use the first parameter. So we can do Django admin, start project, and then we can just name it my site like this. Now, when you do that, you can see really quickly at the top left, it created a my site directory. And let's just go into this directory and see what kind of files it gave us, right? So in here, we have the manage.py file. That's just going to be for doing administrative commands, and you're going to see an example of that pretty soon. Here within the inner my site folder, we have init.py. That's an empty folder that just initializes my site as a package. We have ASGI right here, and then WSGI right here. And those are not going to be important for now. Those two files are only going to be important in the future when you're putting your application in deployment. In our case, we have a settings.py. Now you're going to be using this quite a bit. This settings.py is going to be the main configuration file for your application. So within here, you can see, right, debug is equal to true. We're going to switch that later on. We have an allowed host. That's a list of IPs. We have installed applications. If you want to install maybe some plugins or some other packages related to Django, you would also add it within here. We have a list of middlewares. We can get into that a little bit later. Templates. This is basically telling the system where to find our template files, which are going to be our HTML files, a location of our WSGI file. We also have our database. Now you can see here, we have a default database already set up for us, and that's going to be SQLite 3. Now, unlike larger databases like MySQL, Postgres, or MariaDB, MySQL is just a single file database. And when we run our application for the first time with some SQL models, it's going to create that database file, and that's all we're going to need. We're not going to need to set up any database at all, but we will have to make models soon, so don't worry about that. So here towards the bottom, we have some other stuff like internationalization, time zone. I18N would be for different languages. We have a location for a static URL. And at the bottom here, you can also add more configurations as you're building your application. So here we also have a urls.py file. Now this is going to be our URL configuration. Whenever we add a new URL, we add it to this file as well. Now, as you can see, automatically it adds an admin URL. That's because every Django application comes with an admin interface by default. And we'll get into that a little bit later. Now we can actually go ahead and start a development server. A development server is going to run the web server as it is and allow us to interact with it directly on our local machine. So here in the terminal, if we go back down here, whoa, what's going on? Okay. It's not going to be a Django admin command. Now it's going to be a manage.py command actually. So if we do the ls command is just basically list everything in the current directory. So we have the v environment, virtual environment folder we created earlier, and then the my site project. So if we do cd my site like this, we can see what's in the my site directory. And here we have my site and then manage.py. And we want to be in the same directory as manage.py. Now the command we're going to do, it's going to be py manage.py one server, like that. So whenever you run a Django application for the first time, you're always going to get this error message. There's nothing to be worried about. And you can see Django version 5.2 using this settings file, start a development server at 127.0.0.1. Now, if we copy this link, and we can go ahead to our favorite browser and paste it in like that. And I might have closed the server by accident, pardon. There we go. Server started back up again. And there we go. So as you can see, we see the splash screen, and this means that your application is all good and ready to go. And it's running perfectly fine in your local development environment. Now, in this case, we see the splash screen because we don't have any configured URLs. If you remember, we only had that admin URL. And speaking of which, we can actually visit that if we want to. So at the URL, we do slash and then admin. And here we go. We have the admin administration page. Now to create a username and password for this, you actually do it through a manage.py command. And so that's something we can do later. But for now, congratulations. You're all finished with this introductory part of the course. And for the next part of the course, we're actually going to go into data modeling and SQL, which is my favorite. And so congratulations again. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.